Welcome back to the Rear Naked Recap, UFC Vegas 29. And if you thought this card was not going to be all that entertaining heading into the week, maybe a little bit light on name value, boy, oh boy, did it deliver. However, in delivering the entertainment side of things, little Cody, absolutely abysmal, got crushed. I knew it was a tough card going in. Again, I liked the two top tickets. Everything beyond that was going to be a crapshoot. For the prop side of things, I really did think a few of these fights might be going a little bit longer, hit some of those overs, but it was a wild ride, man. There was a lot of, I wouldn't say unexpected finishes, but a lot of quick finishes, things that happen on the dime, 12 fights, going to jump right into the things. But yeah, again, you can't get them all. I'm not super disappointed with the effort here. However, there are some clearly bad reads by my part, so we'll jump into those. We're going to start off with Casey O'Neill versus Laura Procopio, first fight on the undercard. Dogger pass, prop show talking in. I did like Casey O'Neill. I did not make her the official pick, though. I did end up going Laura Procopio. The whole thing with O'Neill was that she's 23. She's only 6-0. She's still very green. 2 losses as an amateur, both by knockout. Her striking has been improving, but that's clearly not her dominant strong point. Her wrestling, not bad. Grappling, that's it. She needs to get Laura Procopio on the ground over and over, ground her. That's going to be her path to victory here. For Procopio, Procopio's a black belt. O'Neill's only a purple belt. Procopio's got 2 fights in the UFC. It looked good. The loss to Carol Rosa, she throws 165 significant strikes. Sorry, lands 165 significant strikes. Goes 3 hard rounds. The next fight with Molly McCann, 7 takedowns. Cardio looks good the whole way through. I do end up cowering out and taking the favorite in Laura Procopio. There's a lot of money coming in to Procopio. That may have played a factor, but ultimately it was my own decision. I just didn't think that O'Neill was going to consistently be able to ground the fight to the ground. Get it there. I didn't think she had as many weapons as she ended up proving to have. And also going by 2 weeks ago, we got Jordan Leavitt, young, one-dimensional, mostly grappler, not physically strong enough, doesn't look good in there at all. And then last week we got Chase Hooper. He's young, he's one-dimensional, he does not look good in there. He has a loss. I kind of put Casey O'Neill in a similar grouping, not based on the skill set, on the base of the timing of her career. She's young, she's still undefeated, she's a primary grappler. Laura Procopio would have something to show. Her fight starts. It looks like it's going to be the Procopio show all day long. I mean, first 3-4 minutes of the fight, she's too big, she's too strong. O'Neill shoots a couple takedown attempts, but they're not even close. Like, Procopio is far too strong. Her base is too strong. She does get her up against the cage a few times, but Procopio separates. Whenever they're striking, you can see that there is a speed advantage for Casey O'Neill. And I'm not going to lie, Casey O'Neill's striking looked much improved from what we had seen on some tape previously. Clearly, this is someone that's developing very quickly. And they kept mentioning the fact that her father was like a kickboxing champion. So being that she's a primary grappler, it's good to have that family background and someone that's clearly working on putting those additional tools in the bag. And so, yeah, striking looks better, but she's here to get mauled from Procopio. This is not going to go her way. And again, you look at the numbers, it's a Procopio round. Now, about 4 minutes into the round, and I make the stupid bonehead decision of tweeting it. I'm like, if this is how it's going to go, Procopio is going to win a 30-27 or not. She might get a late stoppage. But around 4 minutes into the first round, Casey O'Neill eventually does get the fight to the ground. And as soon as she gets the fight to the ground, into a dominant position, starts maybe attacking for the neck a little bit, round ends. Still a Procopio round, but interesting. Casey O'Neill was able to get the fight to the ground, considering she had no success in the early portion of the round. And that's when everything changes. So on one hand, Casey O'Neill is now a wrecking machine in the second and third round, but Laura Procopio is an absolute shell of herself. Now, if you want to look at the numbers, Procopio lands 32 of 50 strikes in the first round. She only attempts 10 strikes in the second round, 5 of which she landed. In the third round, she gets finished. We know that, but she lands 4 of 5 strikes. So again, she attempts 50 in the first round, lands 32, and then lands a combined 9 in the rest of the fight, and only attempts 15 more strikes outside of the first round. So this is partly Casey O'Neill's, putting the pressure on her. She's tiring her out. She eventually does get her to the ground. Hard to strike when you're on your back. And Casey O'Neill, again, solid performance from her. But I wondered then, and I wondered for a while, what happened to Laura Procopio. Because, again, this is not, well, she gassed out. It was a hectic pace. It really wasn't that hectic of a pace. She had already fought twice previously in the UFC, and both times did not have cardio issues whatsoever. Also, once the fight hit the ground, she kind of started to look, not lost, just wasn't willing to engage. Almost like the body just wasn't responding to what she wanted to do. She's a black belt taking on a purple belt and getting styled on. And then the third round, sure enough, you can make the argument it's 1-1. I had a 1-1 going to the third, but you just know Procopio's done. She's tired, and Casey O'Neill gets the win. So So first and foremost, I am not taking anything away from Casey O'Neill. That was an outstanding performance. She's young. She's getting better. She's rapidly improving. She has legitimate skills, and she's rounding out her game. That's all good stuff. Perhaps even better than the performance, when they ask her right afterwards, who do you want next? She's like, time. And that's just such a great answer for a young fighter, still undefeated. I want to grow. I want to add different elements to my game. And she mentions, I've been moving country to country, camp to camp. It's not great for skill growth. You're staying in good shape. You're getting those rounds in, but I want to add new skills to the game. And that's the name of the game for your fighter. Again, she's 23 and you can rush her into some fun fights. And it seems like she can hang. But I mean, how much better is she going to be at 26 and 27 and 28 when she has all that experience and she had all those skills? She's not in any hurry to rush it. And that was just like a breath of fresh air. The second thing is, we're not taking anything away from her. Something happened to Laura Procopio. It wasn't just Casey O'Neill had such a suffocating performance that Procopio fell apart. So in looking at it, I don't speak Portuguese, but the translations on it from her post-fight stuff, not necessarily from the UFC, but just from the interviews that she did after the fight, she's claiming that she had menstrual cramps. So I know that sounds, we're all guys here, right? So to us, it's like we don't understand it. But there has been a number of fights that have pulled off fight week out due to the period, right? A female fighter has it, you get cramps. A lot of the times they're not getting their period during like fight camp or during their like peak part of their athletic prime, just because the way hormones get balanced and this and that. Anyways, it's a super complicated subject. I don't know fuck all about, but I will tell you, it does affect things. And seeing Procopio completely shut down after 4 minutes and her using that as an excuse, I almost didn't be like, excuse. It was like, you know what? Something was off. So not taking anything from O'Neill, solid performance. With Procopio, do I just write her off next time and like, oh man, that was a bummer. She got tired. It's like, I almost feel like something did happen in there, and I'm going to give her a pass for it. So anyways, I'm 0-1 to start the night. Casey O'Neill has a solid one. Thank God I didn't pull the trigger on Fight Goes the Distance, because it's minus 250. You guys know me. I like the Fight Goes the Distance. 250 just seemed too much for, a lower level fight. And then sure enough, it ends up being a submission for O'Neill. So dodge the bullet. But as far as the PRP goes, it's crushed right off the bat. Ricky Glenn, Joaquim Silva, things do not get better, my friends. Again, with Glenn, he's coming off a near 3-year long layoff and moving up a weight class. So that's the tough part for handicapping, is that you can watch fights from him 3 years ago in which he's soundly getting boxed up by Kevin Aguilar at 145 pounds. And then everything beyond that's an assumption. It's like, okay, well, what has he done since his last 2 fights in the UFC 3 years ago? Well, first of all, his last 2 fights in the UFC were not good performances for him. Second of all, 3 years ago. Third of all, he had a massive hip surgery. Like, by his account, no mobility, has to go in, get the work done, takes years off his fighting career, leaves state, moves back home to Iowa, gets a job as a tradesman, as a plumber, has a kid. Holy fuck, man. And we're going to get behind this guy? Very difficult to now get behind this guy. With Joaquim Silva, he was the power puncher. Is he a little bit reckless at times? Sure. He had also been on for about 2 years himself. But again, you just got to look at recent history. He didn't have the same length of layoff. He didn't have the injury. He didn't have, a switch in career. He hadn't been, blown out of the water his last 2 fights. He did get knocked out his last fight against Nasrat Haqparast. But again, one guy's fighting Nasrat Haqparast and Jared Gordon. The other guy's fighting Kevin Aguilar. Like, it was an apples and oranges thing. And again, this is the fight game. So you can be well prepared. You can be the better fighter on paper. It don't matter once the cage door closes. And with Joaquim Silva, again, he is a little bit reckless, and he does tend to enter the pocket with his hands a little bit low in a straight line. And for Glenn, I mean, he's always been a good striker. I really didn't think he had that kind of power. But you could tell he read that straight left down the pipe all night. I mean, again, he mentions it after the fight as well. He's like, I've been doing that since I'm 14 years old. And it's like, fair enough. Like, he saw the punch. It's actually a short punch. It doesn't get full extension on it. But as soon as it hits Silva, Silva topples over. Now, here's an interesting debate as far as the referee goes, right? Because I can see fans at home saying either A, late stoppage, or B, early stoppage. But no one's really saying fair stoppage. I believed it was a fair stoppage. Joaquim Silva gets dropped 3 times. It wasn't just the first one plants him and he's hurt. He gets back up. He recovers. It's the second seemingly half punch that connects with him, folds him up again. And he does recover. And now a third seemingly half punch folds him up again. And even though it does look as if he's still there, he's still with it, and he's still fighting back, what more good can come from this? Is he just going to get hit 4 or 5 more times and go stiff 4 or 5 more times? Like, no, this was not his night. It wasn't going good for him. And at best, he survives. They get back standing. You're a fucking minute into the fight, and he's already been dropped 3 times. Like, I get it. I get it. Live to fight another day. For Ricky Glenn, it was a huge comeback. This is awesome. Now he factors in, he's on a factor in at 155, but he's getting more fights in the UFC now. This was huge. You lose this, you're probably released, and you're probably thinking, do I even really want to be a fighter anymore? I haven't fought in 3 years. I got a kid. I got a better job. I get paid money. It was thrilling, but you lost. No, this changes everything. This changes everything for Ricky Glenn. It gives him a new outlook on his career. He's going to be able to get some more fights in the UFC now and some interesting fights. For Joaquim Silva, this was a massive setback. You've now been knocked out in your last 2 fights. It did not look good in this latest one, lasting approximately 37 seconds. Took some damage in there. He's 32. He was coming off that layoff himself. I'm sure the UFC gives him another fight. Again, it's just a 2-fight losing streak, and he is a pretty exciting guy, but these are not the results that you want to get moving forward. No doubt about that. Josh Parisian versus Roque Martinez. So on one hand, I'm 0-2 at this point. I got Josh Parisian. I got this fight going the distance for sure. And I took a little smidget on Josh Parisian by decision, like plus 330. But this is a sweat the whole way through. And this is no pat on my back. I probably should be 0-3 at this stage in the night, but 2 judges graced me a decision. And it's not a grace like I got a robbery on this and I feel greasy about it and I feel dirty about it. No, it was a very close fight. You could make the argument for either guy. I make the argument for Roque Martinez. I thought he won the fight. So first round, Roque Martinez is backing him up. With Parisian, we knew this would be the case. I mean, he did the exact same thing in his last fight against Parker Porter, where he fights a shorter, stockier man, and yet he just allows himself to get backed up the entire time. He does have the superior volume, at least by the numbers, in some of his other fights. Again, look at the Parker Porter fight. He lands over 100 significant strikes. His cardio, albeit didn't look good. It was his first time going into the 3rd round and going a decision in quite some time, so that was going to be good for him. There was some good takeaway moments that I was hoping he'd be able to improve on, but Roque just backs him up in the first round, effortlessly, backs him up into the cage. He's landing the better combinations. Parisian's with it. I just feel like he's spending too much time with his back up against the cage, kind of in that cage control that spot. The commentators are just all over Roque Martinez in this forward motion. Whoever goes forward is going to win this fight. Roque Martinez is going forward, and it is a first-round Martinez, but in the 2nd round, Parisian decides to take their advice, and he decides to be the guy that moves forward. Now, again, the first round is pretty clear. Roque Martinez, in my opinion, he outlands Parisian big time. And even though they're not the biggest shots, he's just working him. He spends good time against the cage. Martinez doesn't really get anything going. It's a first round. Parisian didn't really get anything going. First round, Roque. 2nd round, I go Parisian. He's the one pressing forward. He's the one pressing up against the cage. He also starts to let his hands go. Some decent combinations, some decent volume. Roque looks tired. In fact, Roque's taking the round off. He does win the first, and in the second, he looks gassed. Now, this is another guy that doesn't seem to have cardio issues. You'd look at his build, and you'd be like, probably has cardio issues, but does it, He can fight 3 rounds. He is a durable guy, and a lot of the time, he conserves himself. So the 2nd round, he takes off. Now we got a 1-1 going to the 3rd. Personally, on the Parisian side of things, I'm feeling good about it. We just won the 2nd. This guy looks tired. He's not doing anything. Parisian's going to come over here. And then the 3rd round was like, shit. Roque took that 2nd off for a pretty specific reason. He conserved himself. He came in the 3rd round. The 2nd and 3rd round start, he just marches him down. Like, where was that the last 5 minutes? Marches him down, backs Parisian up, starts landing the better strikes, gets him up against the cage a little bit. I would say it's a Roque Martinez round for 4 minutes. A couple uppercuts sneak through. Another overhand right actually caught Parisian, kind of hurt him. I didn't stumble him, but kind of stiffed him up a little bit against the cage. The first 4 minutes is Roque. But it's not like it's a Roque home run. It's not like it's a Martinez walk in the park. It's just for the first 4 minutes of that round, I got him edged out. He is winning the fight. Now, if you've got the mentality, there's a minute left, minute to win it. Whoever wins this last minute, Josh Parisian wins the fight. He wins the last minute. It was a close 3rd round. He pulled through in the last 45 seconds about. But, I mean, you'd have to have the mentality of minute to win it. What about the first 4 minutes that Roque won of the round, right? Like, was it that close that the last 45 seconds, persuaded you? It goes to decision. I'm cool that the decision prop hit. I know I'm probably 0-3 on the night, and that's not a good look for me. But it is what it is. It was a sloppy heavyweight fight. We thought it would go to the decision. It did. We thought that Parisian would do a little bit more, and he didn't quite, but it was close. They gift us a split decision. We're definitely not going to complain about that. But again, it wasn't a bad read. It just it wasn't. I'm not even going to say it was a bad read or it was a good read whatsoever. I think we were pretty spot on to it. We knew it'd be sloppy. We knew it'd be close. We went with Parisian. He edged it out. You feel good or you don't feel good about it. It is what it is. Chaos Williams versus Matt Semmelsberger. So I go with an underdog shot here in Matt Semmelsberger. Again, it's a limited pint-sized portion of what we know about him. He's fought in the UFC against some really limited competition. Carlton minus. Yeah, who gives a shit? He went the distance with Carlton minus. First of all, kind of a problem going the distance with Carlton minus. Second of all, that was the one fight that we kept going back to with, like, he has good volume. He has good volume. Yeah, he has good volume against Carlton minus. How is he going to have that good volume against some of these other guys? Well, he knocks out Jason Witt, 16 seconds. So, again, you don't quite see it. But I go with him for a number of reasons, man. He's got the size advantage. I did figure he'd have the output. He's got a wrestling base, even though, like, people kept saying, oh, his background is wrestling. It's like he wrestled 2 years of high school. I don't think I would consider that a wrestling base. I don't think I would consider this guy a wrestler. He wrestled 2 years of high school. This is the UFC, man. Like, a lot of these guys are top wrestlers. Even a guy like Nick Negamarianu, not a very good wrestler, but at least this guy's wrestled, decent level in Romania, not like 2 years of high school. So regardless, I mean, I'm on Semelsberger. He's plus 155. I'm hoping he's going to outwork him. And the biggest thing here is don't get caught by KS Williams, because KS Williams either hits you and knocks you out, or he's pretty limited, dude. Fast hands, right? We're not going to take that away from him. Super fast hands, but he's awkward. Everything misses. Most of it's blocked. He just lunges from 10 feet out, and then he stands there. Like, if he knocks you out, super fun fighter to watch, man. And I suppose even if he doesn't knock you out, he's still entertaining to watch, but he's a little bit frustrating at times. Like, stands there, and then just, like, chucks 4 punches, 3 of which miss, and 1 of which is blocked. And the judges, who apparently are huge Leonard Garcia fans, just love it. They love the missed punches. Whoa! Did you see that one? It almost landed. Yeah, but it didn't land. So this is a tough one to score. It really is. Because on one hand, KS Williams lands some good shots, but none of which ever really hurt Semelsberger. He did get busted up. He was bleeding, but he was with it the whole time. I thought he was way too tentative and that he clearly respects KS Williams' power. He felt it. He'd seen the highlight reel, and he knew one bonehead decision is going to get me in trouble. So he took his time. But I thought what he was landing was more impactful. I thought he was getting KS Williams' attention. Those leg kicks were money. And in fact, he really should have invested in those leg kicks a lot earlier, because you saw Williams start to slow down. And then once Williams slows, his hands are at his hip side. He's just waiting to unload on you with a combination. Third round, Semelsberger, the first 2 rounds, I guess they're all going to give him to KS Williams. But honestly, I think that there's an argument that Semelsberger could have won this fight. If not, did win this fight. He landed the better shots. He chewed up the lead leg. In the third round, if he's down 2-0, then yeah, he did lose the fight. But if it was 1-1 going into that third round, Semelsberger pulled away. He took the third round. And again, I think visually it looks awesome to see KS Williams throwing these bombs, but he's landed like 30% of his strikes, man. So people don't factor that stuff in. They love wild aggression. They love a guy moving forward. They love, stuff that's blocked apparently. But I do not feel bad about betting on Matthew Semelsberger there at a plus 155 price tag. I did have Semelsberger by decision as well, which again was like plus 300. It didn't pan out, but what can you do? But this is a guy that I would bet on going forward. I mean, he's still young in his career. This step up with this fight with KS Williams was a step up in competition, and he didn't give a bad account of himself. The size is still there. The wrestling, I mean, it was non-existent, but we didn't really think that there was anything to write home about with the wrestling anyways. But his chin looked good. His durability looked good. And I think that it's a good learning experience to realize I can go 3 rounds with this guy. I should have invested in the leg kick. I should have slowed him down. I should have beat him up. I should have put a little more pressure in the third round. His right hand landed a couple times and got KS Williams' attention. Solid. KS, missed 75% of his strikes and then glanced him a few times. And apparently, Matthew Semelsberger was discombobulated. I don't necessarily agree, but this is not even anywhere close to a robbery. I would still agree with the assessment. Oh, you guys thought KS Williams won and you won the decision? Shit. On to the next one. I'm not upset about it. I am just saying this wasn't a total walk in the park, KS Williams. I'm wrong on this one. I thought Semelsberger had his moments anyways. Where I did get completely owned is this Verna Jandiroba Kanako Murata. So I got the fight going the distance. I got Murata by decision. I think that the wrestling, use it to take her down late in the round so she can't, attempt these submission attempts. Take her down with a minute left just so it looks good. But use the wrestling to keep the fight standing and use that striking. Well, that's where it was a bad read, my friend, because right off the bat, it's like, oh, shit. We knew they were both non-strikers. And my mistake, I would have given a slight advantage to Murata's striking, but that's not the case. Verna's a lot bigger than her. Verna had much longer reach than her. Verna's striking looked pretty good in the first round. I mean, moving exceptionally well. She had this like stutter step feint, but I mean, Strikers, non-strikers do not faint. That's the one thing about a non-striker. They'll come in there and they'll just throw their bombs, right? People who faint, it's like that's experience. That's you're getting sparring in. That's you're setting traps. And again, for someone who's primarily a jiu-jitsu fighter, they don't set traps. Verna's striking looked really good. Again, she'd get her to dip the one way. She'd throw the right body kick. She'd go up to the head. The overhand right was working time and time again. I think I'm fucked at this point because now that I know I'm not going to win these striking exchanges, my only backup plan is for Murata to take her down. And I don't really want to play with fire for 3 or 4 minutes of the round by staying in guard. But, you know, sure enough, Murata does end up on the ground. And I mean, Jesus, Verna's just throwing up arm bars. She's throwing up triangles. She gets a deep bite on the arm bar. Murata does an excellent job of escaping the position. And what we don't know at the time is that she really does not escape the position. Her elbow dislocates at the very least. She's able to finish up the round. She landed a couple okay shots from the ground and pound, but considering one of the judges gave Murata the first round, that's ludicrous, right? It wasn't just like, well, she dislocated her. We didn't know that at the time. What we did know is that Virna Jandiroba seriously rocked her standing in the first 30 seconds with a 3-piece combination. Had her rocked. Her right eye is swelling shut. I mean, she's got visible damage. She got seriously rocked. The fight hits the ground, not on a takedown from her, but more or less like a Virna Jandiroba accepts position on the ground, kind of pulls guard into it, and then immediately starts attacking her with triangles and arm bars, one of which, even though you wouldn't know dislocated elbow, you know was deep. And you know she struggled to survive. And yet you still gave Murata the round? Questionable, but we see questionable judging all the time. Second round, it's like evidently clear that the arm's broken. And so I'm going to take a shot at Dominic Cruz here. Well, I'm going to take a shot at the broadcast team. And I love them. It's not like a serious shot, right? But Dominic Cruz is like, if she read the right high kick a lot better, it would land. And then Virna Jandiroba throws the right high kick. And the commentator's, whoa, dude, right on cue. It's like he noticed that the right high kick was there, but he did not notice that Murata was holding her fucking arm out like this for 3 minutes. Yeah, that's why the high kick was there. Her arm is clearly broken. She has not moved it. And then they're all like, oh, dude, whoa. And then Anik's like, oh, I'm hearing from the truck that there might be something wrong with her elbow. It's like 3 minutes into the round. How has nobody noticed this? She's been doing this for 3 minutes. The takedown attempt, she'd go, this arm never moved for the entire time. So I would have hit that decision prop. I know it. Listen, I had a one-armed fighter lasted 10 minutes. Right? You don't think if I had a 2-armed fighter, I could have lasted that third round? I should have got that fight goes the distance. But all the same, it was like damage done by Virna. She's the one that applied the armbar. She's the one that dislocated the elbow or whatever the injury ended up being. It was all applied by Virna. Virna beat her up in the striking. Virna looked strong. Virna's cardio wasn't going anyway. They call her Vina. Is that what they call her? I guess that's probably her real name. Vina Jandiroba. It was a good performance from her. So, yeah, we can say unfortunate injury on Murata's part, but it wasn't like unfortunate injury she posted and it broke. An unfortunate injury, your opponent inflicted said injury. So that's clean as far as I'm concerned. Murata showed a ton of heart having that arm in the second round, not complaining, not looking for a way out. She took a lot of punches, not a lot of punches, but she took a decent amount of shots in that second round on the basis of she couldn't defend herself. And she was willing to fight a third round. The doctor knew it was up right away. He comes in, he squeezes the elbow, and he just whispers in the ref's ear, like, yeah, get her out of here. She's not making a comeback. She's only going to take more damage from here. Her arm's shredded. But for a girl that idolizes Kazushi Sakuraba, yeah, she earned it, man, because that was some Sakuraba shit for sure. Dislocated elbow and just trying to fight on. And so I have a lot of respect for Murata, but the two takeaways is even at 115, she was small in there, man. Like, Virna Jandiroba looked a weight class bigger at least, you know? Kind of going to be difficult for Murata going forward, and, like, how does she factor in it? And for Jandiroba, like, yeah, she's going to be a problem for a lot of people because if you take her down, you're in a world of shit. And if you stand with her, that's usually how you're going to beat her. But again, if she's making these rapid improvements, getting better in those elements, she's going to well-round her game, man. Be a serious problem for a lot of people. So, again, this is a performance you can't take anything away from Jandiroba. She did everything right. And I know a lot of people were on the Jandiroba by submission prop. And, like, man, talk about a terrible way to lose a prop. And, you know, if this Murata girl is anything less than a Kazushi Sakuraba worshiper, she's tapping from that position. I guess John Mahal Hill must like Kazushi Sakuraba too. But full heart on display. But in Hill's case, it's like, oh, dude, if he hadn't dislocated his arm, he could have won that fight, I think. In Murata's case, if she hadn't dislocated that arm, she still loses this thing, you know. Vina was the better fighter. This was a bad read on my part, but not a bad read on the fight goes the distance. I believe it. Why am I even saying that? She busted her arm. Like, most people tap this ain't going the distance. Is what it is. That one I'll take full ownership on. We got Nick Negamariano versus Alexa Kamor. I know people probably want to tell me I got a bad read on this one, but I didn't. Listen to the preview stuff. Kamor is not good. Kamor can't stuff a takedown. Kamor is a very limited guy who's green. It was all about the fade on Nick Negamariano. Now, I stated in many places, many times, if for whatever reason this guy shows up as a revamped version of himself, hasn't fought in 2.5 years, had very limited experience to begin with. He's full-time out of Extreme Couture now, and he's working with Khamzat Chimaev and Alexander Gustafsson, Chris Curtis, Sean Strickland, Jake Shields, probably not Francis Ngannou, but he's in the room at least. Like, that's how you're going to get better. And if for whatever reason this guy does come improved, this thing's going the distance. If he doesn't show up improved and Kamor kicks his ass, it's still going the distance. Negamariano, what we did see in the Saperbek-Safarov fight was like, oh, this guy's got a chin on him. He can take some damage. Now, Safarov's not really a power puncher, and most of it was on the ground, his little ground and pound. But I was really impressed with Negamariano's just overall durability. That's the only thing he brought. His wrestling looked awful in that fight. His striking looked awful in that fight. His cardio looked awful in that fight. But his chin looked very rock solid. With Alexa Kamor, he also has never been finished. You got two guys never been finished before. And, man, he is massively limited. I mean, you see him on the Contender Series against Fabio Chiron. He doesn't look good in the first round before, like, that flying knee saves the day for him. And as far as his run in the UFC goes, like, it's okay at best. Bisping apparently had a man crush on him, and he kept talking all night about how this would be so big for him and how his boxing was so crisp and getting those rounds and would be so important. I don't know, man. Kamor just, he's kind of the same version of himself every time out. He looked really good for the first, say, 3 minutes. Everything was landing at will. But Negamariano, man, I mean, his chin really did come as advertised. It was solid. And when he took all of his shots in the first 3 minutes, he'd throw back some sloppy stuff in return. Sloppy, but heavy. You know, he was throwing with bad intentions. And you'd have Kamor would land 3 or 4 shots on Nick. And the second that Nick would return fire and land one single shot, it's like Kamor was hurt. You know, he was feeling the effects of those shots. I give him the first round because he did land a lot more strikes. It's a close round. But you've got the first 3.5 minutes, which are Kamor. The last minute and a half, you start to see Negamariano starting to work his way back into it, starting to put some pressure on him, land some good shots, get his attention. But I just felt that it was a slight edge for Alexa Kamor in that first round. Second round, it's Negamariano. You've got Kamor's completely gassed. This guy's just not going anywhere. You don't have to be the most skilled as long as you're tough and you are willing. And that's exactly what he was doing. He's built as a wrestler. And I mean, I guess there was a few takedown attempts here and there. There was some clinch here and there. But most of all, he would just walk forward. He'd get hit from everything Alexa Kamor had, and he'd walk right through it, land some shots back. I got the first round for Kamor, second round for Nick. It's a 1-1 going to the third. The difference is Negamariano from his first fight, okay? Chin, we got that check. Cardio, striking, wrestling. Now we're looking at this one. Striking's still not good as far as I'm concerned. Wrestling's still not good as far as I'm concerned. But he shored up his cardio. And so as a result, he just kept coming. And that mentally and physically, I think, broke Kamor. He still landed the better shots in the third round. But again, there was a feeling of he's backing up. He's getting a little bit desperate. He would land 2-3 good ones, and I would feel Kamor's going to squeak this round out. And then Negamariano would land 1 back, maybe 2 back, and you would see visibly Kamor's hurt. His body language is awful. I had a feeling that we were probably going to drop this on a close decision. We did drop this on a close decision. Again, this is not one I can complain about. If Kamor would have gotten it, I would have argued, well, yeah, he won the first round and the third round was close and he landed the slightly better shots. But again, the argument goes the other way too. He's getting backed up. He was tired. He was frustrated. Is this a good learning experience for him? Sure. But the William Knight fight should have been a good learning experience for him where he got tired, he got taken down, he got controlled. In this case, he took on a guy who was a Romanian fighter, never defeated a man with a winning record before, taken a 2.5 year long layoff, and looked absolutely abysmal against a 1-3 UFC fighter his last time out. This is the perfect fight for Kamor to win. comes in as a sizable favorite, one of the bigger favorites on the card. I did put him into, some parlay situations because, again, it's not so much we like him. We really are fading Negumereanu, and it did not work. So lesson learned there. I don't think you can in good conscience ever bet Alexa Kamor against anybody ever again. I get that's going to sound really harsh, and he is young, and he is getting those rounds in, and I'm sure he's improving. But he's a bottom end generalist. He can't wrestle, right? His striking, although it looks sharp, is not yielding the results that he wants. And he's not a guy that's going to strike for 15 minutes. He can strike for 3 minutes. He can strike for 5 minutes. He can strike in pockets, but he takes way too much damage in there. And against a non-hitter like Negumereanu, he got away a few times being stunned. But against anybody in the top, who knows? They're going to absolutely maul him. This fight was also, at 205 pounds? Like, he's in for a rough ride, man. Absolutely. And this is the last thing I kind of feel guilty about this one, but strong style fight teams, the camp that produced Stipe Miocic, Jessica Ai, probably the two most notable fighters that have come out of the gym. And I know some of the guys from the gym. They're super great guys. Stipe, my Croatian brother, one of my favorite fighters. Well, of like the new era, I wouldn't say of all time, but certainly of the new era, and the guy that I always root for, former heavyweight champ, love it. But strong style fight team doesn't appear to be doing anything to be getting these people ready for anything beyond, regional scene fighting. Or think about, we'll start with Jessica Ai, okay? So she's bred and born there, right? Ohio girl, strong style fight team. She abandons it, being like, this is not a good gym, and they don't give you any attention. No one's improving. I need to go to Las Vegas. Jessica Ai made a lot of improvements when she left strong style fight team. Stipe Miocic, he wins the heavyweight title, and he has skills. He's a heavyweight. They don't bring in partners for him to train with. He's training. The broadcast mentions it multiple times. Alexa Kamor is his top training partner. They say Alexa Kamor spent a lot of time mimicking Francis Ngannou. Shit, I wish I would have known that, because then I would have realized Stipe is going to get killed. How can you prepare for Francis Ngannou by training with Alexa Kamor every day? You need to go somewhere else. You need to get those training partners. So now think about if you're Alexa Kamor. Stipe's not in camp anymore, and he's a heavyweight to begin with. These other people have left. It's a smaller gym. You don't have training partners to work with. How are you supposed to get better? This kid from Romania fought the saltiest competition in the world, at least left, and went to Extreme Couture and put himself in a room with guys that are better than Alexa Kamor, and trained 8 weeks with those guys that were better than Alexa Kamor, and then came in and delivered. So, yeah, he doesn't really have like a huge ceiling, but massive improvements out of Negumereanu, and cool to see what he'll go forward. And with Alexa Kamor, this is a massive step backwards, because on one hand, well, it's just a split decision, and you went 3 rounds and you showed some promise. You fought the bottomed out on paper, because you showed a little bit at least, but going into this was the worst guy on the roster. This is the lowest level guy currently in the division, and he beat your ass. So that's a problem. Matt Brown versus Diego Lima. Keep in mind, I've gotten wrong. I'm wrong in the first fight, Procopio. I'm wrong on Joaquim Silva. He gets clipped. Josh Parisian, I'll take it, but let's be real here. Matt Semmelsberger, I lost. I get it, right? The Murata fight, oh man, my bad read. Alexa Kamor, I got on some tickets and just got blown up. I'm getting fucked up. And now I got Matt Brown. Matt Brown's going to be my saving grace. Like, man, I'm going to probably lose another fight and look like an idiot. I know I'm going to get harped on. But again, the reason why I switched to Brown, Lima's chinny, dude. He'd been knocked out 3 times in the first round in the UFC in his first stint. And I did outline this big time, right? Everyone's like, well, he hasn't been knocked out in a while. Maybe his chin's, better. Or maybe he's defensively a lot more sound. No, his fights since he returned were Jesse Taylor, power wrestler, Okami, grappler, Chadler Priest, a 55er, Court McGee, and that was a split decision that Court McGee dropped him in. Luke Jumo, split decision in a fight. He landed like 24 significant strikes. Bilal Muhammad eats him up, but is not a power puncher. I thought, you know what? The last thing to go is power. Matt Brown's a junkyard dog. We know he's a lot slower than he used to be. We know his cardio is not as good as it used to be. We know his durability is not what it used to be. Pretty much all of his skill set at the age of 40, everything has regressed. But the dude still has got power. He also realizes this might be his last UFC fight. And for that matter, if I'm not fighting in the UFC getting paid what I want, which everyone always says, like, oh, you get cut from the UFC, Bellator pick you up, or PFL pick you up. He's 40, and he's shop-worn. He has a pro record of 22 wins and 18 losses, and he's looking at a potential 3-fight losing streak. This is everything to Matt Brown. And if Matt Brown comes out and he lets his hands go and he fights like a desperate man, he still has that power that he could knock out Diego Lima. Now, Diego Lima would have the speed advantage. He'd have the kicking range. He'd have all those things. But, man, he's limited. The joke would always be Diego ain't his brother. He's not his brother. He's not Douglas. But then seeing Douglas's regressions over the last couple fights, it's like Diego's a little closer to that. If he regresses too, this is not going to go good. Now, again, he hasn't looked particularly well himself, but he still favors to be the favorite over Matt Brown. The one thing I screwed up is I took Matt Brown straight up as an underdog, but I should have known, and kudos to a lot of people. You guys hit this money. If you were going to bet Matt Brown, why would you not take the TKO prop? Like, that's where I blew it. He was going to win this. If he was going to win this fight, he wasn't winning it on decision. He probably wasn't going to submit him. He was going to knock him out. And it was like an infinitely better price tag. I didn't do that. I just had him on the straight up. But all the same, the first round, I think Matt Brown really gives a good account of himself. The body shots are working, like kicking to the body well. He's pressuring well and staying in his face. He's being aggressive, but he's getting beat to the punch. And more so than getting beat to the punch, he's getting beat to the calf kick. Now, it was interesting because it was almost like a kicking battle. You had Diego Lima is using the calf kick, and it's definitely reddening up the leg of Matt Brown. I wouldn't say slowing him down. He was still moving pretty good on it, but you could tell it was definitely chopping away. Matt Brown, meanwhile, is going with the old traditional thigh kick. And I thought that when he would hit that thigh of Lima, it was devastating. It was slowing down Lima. It was stiffening him up. The difference was Matt Brown would throw, he maybe landed 2 or 3 thigh kicks in the entire round, whereas Diego would just throw that calf kick over and over and over. And so I guess visually speaking, it appears that Diego Lima outworks Matt Brown in the first round, but it was close. And the fact that Matt Brown is now in this close fight with you, the longer this thing goes, man, if you make one mistake, it's all over for you. And then sure enough, second round, it's going pretty much the same way. You know, Matt Brown's getting closer with these strikes. He's starting to edge in. You do get the impression that like anything could land and change the day, but Lima is doing a pretty good job staying at the outside, trying to stay as long as he can. And then boom. If you blinked, you might not have seen it. That's how fast it happened. Matt Brown putting that legendary power on display. I wouldn't say legendary power. It's like legendary finishing ability. Like, again, and I described him as a junkyard dog, and that's what he is. He's a shark in the water. Once he smells the blood, he's able to get on you. Once he sees the desperation, he gets on top of you. And at 40 years old, you know, so cool to see him go look at the camera and be like, you know, what? You know, 40 years old, what? It's like the old man still had one. It was some Rocky Balboa shit where, you know, you jump up off the couch and you cheer for the old guy. And it shows that he can still compete. He can still hang. He's going to get another fight now in the UFC afterwards. It's that the matchmaking team needs to be very certain to don't let him fight some young up-and-comer that's going to hurt him and make a name off him. He needs to fight, you know, like the Carlos Condit fight. I know he lost, but at least that was 2 older guys, you know, good reputations, good name brand guys. It's going to be a similar pace type fight. Miguel Beza fight, not a great fight. Don't give him one of these young guys. Diego Lima was neither one of those things. It wasn't a legend. It wasn't a prospect. He was just a mid-tier guy, and those mid-tier guys are the guys that Matt Brown will be able to hang with. So Matt Brown, Court McGee, you know, something like that. Both guys that are durable, both guys that have some history. To me, that's fun. I understand people probably want to see, you know, more interesting matchups with bigger name guys, but it's like I just don't want to see him get hurt. He's been on record saying he's got concussion issues and he's got a bad back. And this was so cool to see that in a perfect world, he sets in the sale. Dana cuts him a $50,000 bonus. He gets his show money. He gets his win money. Venom gives him some sponsorship money. He's the kind of guy that has such a big name that he probably does get a few independent sponsors outside of the cage just because, you know, big name guy. Local to Ohio, you know, they support their fighters certainly. But like, he's not going to hang his hat off that. He'll probably fight 2-3 more times. That's I just don't want to see, you know, Matt Brown's the man, right? Matt Brown's one of these guys that's easy to get behind. This is a huge, cool moment, but we can't just shake it off that it's like, oh, dude, he looks so good. Let's give him a top 15 guy next time out. It's like, no, you got to be very careful with him. Bruno Silva versus Wellington Turman. This ended up being another bad read for myself in that I shouldn't have switched, man. All week, Paul and I talked about this. Bruno Silva opens as the underdog, and he's just an automatic spam bet play. Now that money's coming in on him, and he's the bona fide favorite, just take the knockout prop. Dude touches you, you topple over. He's got 19 career victories, 16 of which are by knockout. 0 submissions. 16 knockouts. Unheard of. While he's fighting shitty Brazilian guys. No! He's in the Russian regional scene, coming in as a 6, 7, 8-1 underdog, taking on the best Russian guys that they have available and icing them. We know he has a massive amount of power. The reason why I cowered it out and flipped, we'll talk about it, The reason I cowered out and flipped, it's like I got worried on the 2.5-year long layoff. He had a suspension for boldenone, so essentially he signs with the UFC. USADA red flags him. Boldenone it's a steroid. It's kind of like testosterone, but it's mostly made to build muscle. So this is a big guy. He's imposing, and he has a ton of power. He's been fighting in Russia. I'm sure they're not testing you. And now you come stateside. Doesn't even fight. Doesn't have a fight booked. Literally the first time USADA knocks on his door and we're like, hey, we need to take a sample. He tested. So the layoff, not on the juice anymore. He did show some pretty bad cardio in the last fight against Frolov. Gets a 4th round knockout. But rounds 2 and 3, he was certainly really tired. And his takedown defense didn't look all that good. When you look at Wellington Turman, for a guy that's a Curitiba shoot-to-box, Brazilian fighter, only 24 years old, his takedowns are not that bad. He's really strong in the clinch. And almost like a Ray Cooper from PFL, he just spams to the clinch and the takedowns. Even though he's not a wrestler per se, that's not like his natural base. That's where he feels more confident. And he's strong in those positions. So if he's able to muscle you up against the cage, he could theoretically pull you to the ground and he works you over. Now, this was like watching history repeat itself. So Wellington Turman fought what's his name? I'll just bring it up. It's his first fight in the UFC. Takes on Carl Roberson, right? Split decision win for him. If you notice that fight, it's Turman the entire way leading the dance with the takedowns. He would go, he'd get the takedown, he'd set a position, and he'd get swept. When he'd get swept and he'd end off of his back, he has no game off his back. This is not a guy that's going to submit you his back. This is not a guy that's really even looking to scramble or get back to his feet. He's almost lost in there when he's on his back. And he puts himself on his back by securing the takedown and making a stupid decision. But at that time, it's like, I think he was only 22 years old. He's 22 years old when he fights Carl Roberson. He loses a split decision. He scored 3 takedowns. He had the dominant position. Small little mistakes screwed it up for him along the way. The Marcus Perez fight, takedown city, grinds him easy. The Andrew Sanchez fight, Sanchez is a 3-1 D1 All-American. You weren't going to take him down, so he had to fight, he had to strike, and he gets knocked out. So now we got the tale of 2 outcomes here. Paul and I already acknowledged that if you're Silva, the Silva by knockout was plus 200. If he was going to win, he was going to knock him out. If Turman was going to win, he was going to use these takedowns, and he's probably going to grind out a decision. The fight starts. Turman's doing exactly the perfect work. He goes out there, he clinches him up, he takes away all that space, he pulls him to the ground. Silva grabs the cage. The ref does not do anything about it. Fair. Turman ended up grabbing the cage after that himself. But he's closed up that space. He's not striking with the big long strike. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. And so he gets the fight to the ground. Great job from Silva from popping up, but it's all defensive position. He's got him on one knee against the cage. He would pick him up. It was like a suplex, but it wasn't clean. It was just like muscle the guy to the ground, but he's muscling him to the ground. Turman's doing everything he needs to do. Where Turman's screwing up is the exact same shit as the Carl Roberson fight. He's so antsy to get a submission, he gives up perfectly good positions away, searching for Kimuras, searching to pass, searching for the neck. Dude, don't. I get it. You want to win the bonus. You want to win the fight. You want the crowd to cheer. You want the people to call you. They want an interview. I get it. You want to finish a fight. You're 24 years old. You're blowing these fights for yourself. You did this already, and he fucking did it again. He gets way too antsy for the submission. He allows himself to get swept, and Bruno Silva makes him pay. Bruno Silva's losing that round. There's about 48 seconds left in the round when he gets top position, and it was like, that's all he needed. Turman's got no game off his back. He's got a very suspect chin, and now he's got a murderous power puncher on top of him. Well, it wasn't going to go good. He almost lasted to the bell. But it was like he got hit, but a dozen solid shots that he took before that, it was just a matter of time. He gets knocked out. I would say on one hand, you could look at Wellington Turman as well. He's not so bad. The grappling, clearly he can get takedowns. Clearly he can work. He has no ring IQ, and he has no chin, and he's only 24 years old. So he's a massive red flag going forward because he's going to be able to upset guys and pull it off if he fights a proper game plan. But how could you trust this guy to fight a proper game plan? I would like to think that his coaches say, hey, man, position before submission. But that's not who he is. And the flip side to Bruno Silva, I'd like to see him just fight another striker so we can see his just a fun fight. But even then, give him a wrestler, because if they fail to take him down or he ends up on top of him, 17 career knockouts and 20 wins now. So Bruno's that's awesome. He's going to factor right into this middleweight division. Maybe not as the most skilled guy right away, but just there's so many fun fights for him. And with his reputation, with his power, with all of that, he could easily string together a couple of wins and shoot himself up the rankings. But very fun addition in Bruno Silva. And for Wellington Turman, total bust. You don't cut him just yet, even though he's lost his last two, both by knockout. But again, for a 24-year-old, he's taken too much damage. He's got very poor ring IQ. He could probably benefit from going to the regional scene, getting his confidence back up, getting some wins back up. And I mean, you're going to have to test this stuff. Like, I guess it'd be one thing to be on the regional scene, maybe even an LFA, a good, solid regional scene promotion, and get swept, end up on your back, and then have to make your adjustments. Now, what the problem is that he makes a mistake and they've got him in too tough. Like, Andrew Sanchez is a tough opponent. And now you got Bruno Silva, who's the M1 champion who iced Alexander Shlemenko. Like, you know, and Frolov's not on Shlemenko's level, but still, it's like this guy's knocked out credible opponents. Wow, well, he's got 6 losses. He started his career off 5-5. And he's like 15-1 since then. Like, dude was scary. He lived up to it. So again, at this point, my terrible night is still intact. I'm just getting fucking buzzed up. The picks I stayed with are losing. The ones that I flipped on, because I flipped off Bruno. I should have stayed that. And I flipped off. What else did I flip off of? Casey O'Neill, right? So it's like, yeah, I shouldn't have made those decisions, but whatever. I mean, I'm my own enemy in that situation. It happens. Sungwoo Choi versus Julian Erosa. So this is another one. I flipped on it. I got to stop listening to other people's opinions. It's not that I don't value the opinions, and I'm all about gathering more information, but a lot of times people are dead set on something, and their confidence throws me off. Because as you guys can tell from a lot of my previews, if I really like the fight, there's a confidence there. But there's 12 fights on the card. Are you confident in all 12 of them? No. There's fights that it's just like, shit, I don't know. It could go either way. If this guy gets the takedowns, he wins. If this guy gets the striking, he wins. Who's going to put the proper game plan together? Who's going to make the one bonehead decision? But people on Erosa were seemingly really high on Erosa, and I kept hearing it all week long. Dog with a chance. His chin's a lot better. He's going to pressure him in. Sungwoo Choi, 2-round cardio guy. He's going to get tired. His ground game's not that good. The inside the distance props were all over Erosa. Erosa's cardio is just too good. Fuck, man, I ended up buying into it. I bought into it because it's like, man, I do have a lot of these favorites, and Sungwoo Choi, I guess he mostly just relies on the jab. And to this point in Sungwoo Choi's career, at least in the UFC, he hadn't shown a propensity to knock guys out. Mind you, the first 2 fights, Gavin Tucker and Movsar Evloev, what are you going to do? But the Suman Mokhtarian fight, I mean, he hits Mokhtarian, who's a terrible fighter, with everything, and Mokhtarian just, he absorbed it all. I mean, his chin checked out pretty good. And then obviously the last time with Yusuf Zalal, again, Zalal's got a good chin. He's a tricky fighter. He evades a lot of damage, but it wasn't like this guy's just got a jab, like what beyond that long range jab and a follow up right hand is going to get the knockout. But again, Erosa is a guy that you can say recent history, just like Diego Lima. Oh, well, recently he hasn't been getting knocked out. He has a bad chin. He's been knocked out 6 times, 5 of which in the first round. The Sean Woodson fight, epic comeback, dropped in the first round. He's been dropped by guys that were lighter weight classes than him. He got knocked out by, I think, Bobby McIntyre on the regional scene, a 6-5 opponent. Knocked him out in the first round. He doesn't have a very good chin. And so when he came out against Sungwoo Choi, those jabs, like the first 3 jabs that Choi hit him with, they all got his attention. Juicy J never got going. Like, literally the fight was done before he's a guy that builds momentum. He's losing the first 3-4 minutes against Woodson, but he gets himself going. The Nate Landwehr fight, it's a hectic pace, but he catches him before it gets going. But he's a guy that builds momentum as the fight goes. If you want to fight him in a 5-round fight, knock him out in the first. But if he makes it to the 5th, Paddy Pimblett had to fight him for 5 rounds. Like, Julian Erosa's got good cardio, and he does keep going. But if you pounce on him and you knock him out in the first round before he gets a chance, that does seem to be his kryptonite. And solid win by Sungwoo Choi. He goes and he gets the knockout. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have a ton invested in that fight. But 1, I did officially switch off the pick to Erosa, which was bad for me. And 2, had I bet this one, I would have probably taken the over 1.5, thinking that Erosa takes some time to get going. Choi really hadn't shown that power. And Choi just went out there and knocked him out pretty quickly. So with Juicy J, again, more fights are going to come. You are entertaining. This is just one setback. It's no big deal, but it's going to be hard to bet this guy confidently against a lot of guys because either he brings the goods or he gets clipped at any point. He falls over. And durability and cardio are 2 things that you really want on your guy when you're betting them. Durability allows, if he gets himself into a bad position, he'd be able to come out on the other side, take a few shots, roll with any type of adversity. Cardio, we're going to be able to do that for 15 minutes. If you got suspect cardio, you can't fight 15. How can you bet this guy? Because at any point he gets tired, he topples over. And if you got a suspect chin, how do you bet this guy? At any point he gets hit and he topples over. is going to make him a very dangerous play moving forward, certainly. And with Sumo Choi, I'd be confident in betting this guy now moving forward. He is coming into his own. So again, comes to the UFC. We know that Evloev can take him down. We know Tucker can take him down. We know that takedown defense is going to be an issue for him. But it looked much improved in the use of the Zalal fight. Clearly something he's working on. He's huge for this weight class, man. 6 feet tall at 145 pounds. Thick guy. Shows up in great shape. And his striking is a problem. I mean, we knew he had this Korean Muay Thai background, for whatever that's worth. You know, bronze medal at the Worlds as an amateur. You know, had some good striking accolades. But he's starting to put it together really nice in an MMA form. With those 4-ounce gloves, that jab's going to be money. That follow hand, right hand. And I think Suho Choi is a very durable guy himself. So he'll be able to take the punches. His cardio improving, getting better. He would be a guy that you'd be interested in betting in the future, depending on the matchup, as opposed to Erosa, who you will almost certainly need underdog status on Julian Erosa anytime you bet him, because then as an underdog, sure, plus money, if he doesn't get clipped, he can pull through. But betting him as a favorite, that's a premise that, you know, I'm pretty much done with. Marlon Vera versus Davey Grant. This was Marlon Vera's the lock of the week. Marlon Vera by decision is the play of the week. Marlon Vera's our guy. If Marlon Vera loses, this night's going so bad that what more could go any worse? But, you know, if Marlon was to lose, I suppose I would probably check out a tutorial on how to fucking make a noose, because things are not going good, and I need Marlon Vera here, baby. We see the first fight around. Again, it's a long time ago. Marlon Vera wasn't the same guy he was back then. Davey Grant was coming off the Ultimate Fighter. He's bigger, he was stronger, he had better wrestling, I suppose. He had some cardio. That first fight was so long ago that to me took nothing. I didn't get no real stock into it. Watched it a few times, but it was like these guys are two way different guys. You have a 22-year-old Marlon Vera who is training out of Ecuador. And now you've got, you know, like a nice, mature, solid version of him chasing with Jason Perillo, the Ruka gym over in California. Like, he's really, I call it RVCA. Why do I even say Ruka? People call it that. I think that's so stupid. It's RVCA. But he's putting all the game together. He's maturing as a fighter. We know he's a slow starter, but Marlon Vera's career is going up. Davey Grant, he's on a 3-fight winning streak. But we know Davey Grant. This should have been a walk in the park. It ended up being a sweat. It wasn't a sweat in that we lost the first round, because that is a classic Marlon Vera thing. So Marlon Vera's, including this win, but even before that, he's lost first rounds, because, I mean, the list is just pretty hilarious, really. He lost the first round to Guido Canetti. He lost the first round to Wuji Burin. He lost the first round to Brad Pickett. He lost the first round to Guang Yu Ning. He lost the first round to Roman Salazar. He won all of those fights and drops the first round. He is a notorious slow starter. There's something about Cheeto, you know, maybe he just takes a little too long to get going. Maybe he's playing it defensively at first, trying to read some information, trying to get a read on your timing. But he loses the first round pretty often. The second round is when the guy turns around. The second round is where he gets going, and then he becomes a problem. Even the Aldo fight, I did not mention this because he loses the Aldo fight, but he loses the first round. You know, he's getting eaten up to the body. And then the second round, he comes alive. The third round, it's the grappling that ends up saving it for Aldo. But this is just a theme for Cheeto Vera all the time. So I know a couple of people are like, he's the live betting god, because just bet him out for the first round. You're going to get plus money on him, and you know he's going to come back. You know he's going to do his damnedest to come back. And this was the same thing. I mean, Davey Grant landed the better strikes. Sorry, I don't think I'd say Davey Grant landed the better strikes, but he landed a lot more everywhere. He landed more headshots. He worked the body a lot more. The leg kicks were working. This is a Davey Grant round, more so on the basis that Marlon Vera chose to take it off. It wasn't a blowout round, but it is score for Davey Grant. And I'm not even feeling bad about it. This is a Marlon Vera trade. In the second round, this is where I start to get my sweat on, because Marlon needs to make his comeback and needs to get the victory here. He needs to win the second round, finishing Davey Grant, even though, you know, some high-level jiu-jitsu guys have done it in the past. I don't think Marlon Vera is the biggest finisher. I don't think he's finishing Davey. If we're down 2 going into the third, I'm in a lot of trouble. I need to secure the second round at the very least. And Davey Grant's actually doing a phenomenal job. He's working him over. And then 2 minutes left into a round that I got scored for Vera, but it's close. It's up in the air. Davey Grant's the one that gets the takedown. And that changes everything. I'm in a lot of trouble here. Davey Grant holds this down. 2 minutes left in the round. He just stays on top position. He's going to win this round. He wins this round. I'm down 2 going to the third. This ticket's done. Fight goes the distance prop was okay, but what I really needed was the Vera by decision, not just fight goes the distance. I'm getting slaughtered so bad on this card that, like, these little things are really going to help me out here. And He gets taken down in the second. It's like, I have this like, you know, sinking feeling in the bottom of my stomach. Like, shit, man, you got to get going. And he does. Heart of a warrior, you know, badass. You're in a bad position. You need to work. His ground game's slick, man. You know, he throws up the arm bars pretty good off his back. He's got good hips. He was searching for the triangle choke. Davey did a good job of avoiding, but every time Davey would avoid, he'd leave one arm in. So either he was at threat of three things, really. He was at threat of the triangle. He was at the threat of the arm bar. He was at threat of this omoplata. And what Vera would do is use the omoplata to create a little bit of space and try to scramble. But eventually he scrambles and he gets this like, it's like an inverted triangle, right? And again, all he's doing is creating these positions to create scrambles to get on top. And when he gets on top, again, we're running out of time, and this is a close round, but Vera most definitely takes this round back. You know, he does exactly what he needs to do. He's got some ground and pound in there late. He ends up on top. It was a close round to begin with. Mara pulls this thing back up. We're 1-1. And again, you know, unless Davey takes him down in the third round, we should be cruising here. Marlon Vera has his best round in the third round. Beats him up fairly handedly. I was feeling pretty good about it. We get the decision. But, I mean, Marlon Vera was ranked number 15 in the world. Marlon Vera just fought Jose Aldo to a really competitive fight, and he's like 27 years old. Like, sky's the limit for this kid. People like him. He's a fan favorite, and he's, you know, he beat Sean O'Malley, and he probably got an unfavorable decision against Song Yadong, who's a top Chinese prospect that's, you know, starting to build a name for himself as well. Like, all Vera is doing is fighting these badasses, and that was a really close fight versus a journeyman gatekeeper in Davey Grant. People will say, Cody, that's disrespectful to call him journeyman gatekeeper. I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean, he's 35 years old. The guys he beats are the Gregory Popovs of the world or the Martin Days of the world, who was 0-4 in the UFC, or he can humble a guy like a Jonathan Martinez. But that's what a journeyman gatekeeper does. He holds down the gate. Jonathan Martinez, you think you're good? You think you're next level? You got some confidence? Can you get by Davey Grant? No, you can't. Back to the building board. But any of those guys in the top 15, you know, they're beyond Grant. And I know Grant's been on record being like, I own restaurants and fighting is just for fun for me. That's badass, dude. I hope you enjoy and you find it fun. Guarding that gate, that's fun. You can do that. But like anything beyond that, we know the limitations of him. And listen, man, he's inverted triangle choke away from maybe just holding down position for the end of that second round. Davey Grant wins. And then what's the story here? The story is Vera's not as good as we thought, but I thought Vera pulling it out when he needed to showed a ton. He probably looked over. The broadcast showed his wife a couple times. God damn, you're lying on your back and you see her there looking panicked. You're like, no, baby, I'm coming. And you make something happen. He beat Davey Grant. And he probably celebrated like a champ. So good on Marlon Vera and for saving the ticket. The only one thing we need still to not break even, but take a loss that I would still be cool with. Listen, it's the fight game. Thinking we're going to win money every card? No. You win some money, you lose some money. It's part of it. This is not looking good for me. But if Spivak was to win, parlayed with the Vera win, you know, at least they live to fight another day. Spivak is the biggest favorite on the card. It should be a walk in the park. Oh, man. Nothing is a walk in the park in MMA, my friend. Alexei Olenek, he's, you know, the broadcast said he was 43. He's turning 44 in like 4 days from now. So as far as I'm concerned, he's 44. He's got the body of a middleweight. He's got almost 100 pro fights. People will disagree with that, and they'll say, no, man, he's got 75 pro fights. It's like, do you know how many fights this guy's had in Ukraine and in Russia back in the late 90s, early 2000s that are not documented? He's got 100 fights. His body's war-torn. He's been knocked out by all of the greatest outside of Francis, I guess. Chris Daukaus, good power puncher. Derek Lewis, legendary power puncher. Walt Harris, pretty solid power puncher. Alistair Overeem, legendary power puncher. Like, my God, Alexei Olenek, again, he's beat up. He's old. He's undersized. But the guy has got this gritty, Spetsna-like durability where I've always made the joke, you know, if this was war times, you could capture him, you could torture him, and you'd be like, tell me where your comrades are. And he'd be like, I don't know. It's just like, shit, you cannot break him unless he's out cold. That became the problem with Sergey Spivak. Spivak is not a power guy. So whereas we talk about who exactly is beating Alexei Olenek, well, Daukaus knocks him out. Well, he's a power guy. Okay, well, you know, Derek Lewis knocks him out. Okay, he's a power guy. Okay, well, those guys are big power punchers. They could take him out. If you couldn't take him out, you probably got to settle for a greasy fight with him. And shit, dude, this is a greasy fight. This was way greasier than 3-1 Spivak should have suggested. So first round, Spivak's got the jab. And the thing is, again, he's not a power guy. So he would land the jab, but Alexei Olenek just blocks everything with his forehead. You know, he just like puts his head down, takes it off the dome, and just walks forward. That haircut, awful. But you know if you're going to rock a haircut like that, you better know how to fight. Alexei Olenek knows how to fight. So even though the jab's working for Spivak, I thought Alexei Olenek was doing a good job just moving forward, winging those overhand hooks left and right, and try to get this fight against the cage. Spivak's so wise to it, though. Every time the fight hits the cage for the first round, Spivak easily just gets off the cage, easily pulls him off. The takedown attempts, he's not really committing to takedown attempts, but you can tell that Olenek just doesn't have that explosiveness to shoot down low on the hips, nor does he have the explosiveness to just toss you. What he wants is just double underhooks, try to grab like a scarf hold from a stand-up position or head and arm choke from a head-up position and just drag you down. Spivak's a big boy. They say he's only 6'3". He just seems so much taller than that for me. But regardless, he's got long legs and he was hard to get his base off of. Also, the hooks, he saw them coming from a mile out and easily avoided them. He's probably cruising pretty decent this first round for the first 4 minutes. And then Alexei Olenek just chucks an overhand right-hand bomb as he's done 10 times this round. And boom, he connects square on the money, hits Spivak. Spivak's not hurt, but he certainly takes a step backwards. And then Alexei Olenek runs in, takes his back. I didn't think he'd get the choke, which he didn't. I thought Spivak was smart enough to realize there's only a minute left and would just, you know, fight hands and survive. But dude, you just lost the round. This is frustrating. You win first 4 minutes of the round. This is going your way. You've stuffed all of his takedowns. You've landed really the only significant strikes. And like 45 seconds left in the round, Alexei Olenek hits him and gets a back take, both hooks in, searching for a rear naked choke. As far as the optics of that round goes, yeah, it's Alexei Olenek's round. He just won. 44-year-old middleweight with 100 fights, just won the first round over Sergey Spivak. Okay, so normally I drop a first round in a bet. Yeah, not happy with it, and then that's when you start feeling the sweat. Oh shit, we're gonna have to win 2 or 3 now. Didn't feel that way versus Marlon because he's a slow starter. I didn't feel that way initially in this fight because I didn't think Alexei Olenek would have the cardio. Like he did kind of push himself pretty heavy in that first round. The guy, we've talked about all of his limitations. Cardio is just not quite there anymore. So Spivak has been showing improved cardio. You know, you look at the Jared Vanderohe fight, ground and pound looked good. He was never tiring in that one. The Carlos Felipe fight, the third round was his best round. He's still young. He's still getting better. He's another one of these guys that's training in an ultra competitive room. His cardio will win him out. So now we got the second round, and well, wouldn't you know it, second round, Sergey Spivak, he's working off the jab. He's doing better. He's winning the round. Alexei Olenek pulls guard. Now, I thought that one was extremely interesting from an Olenek standpoint. Clearly, he would prefer to have these fights on the ground, but you don't want to pull guard. Listen, Paul Craig made it work extremely effectively, but Paul Craig was taking on a guy in Jamal Hill who didn't figure to really have that grappling. Spivak is a grappler. His path to victory for this fight, his easiest path was used as striking, simply because he's fighting Alexei Olenek. But you don't want him on top of you, and he's wise to a lot of these attempts. So when he pulled guard, it was almost like there's 3 minutes left in the round, and this is going to be 3 minutes of top control for Sergey Spivak. What he did do an excellent job is that he would go to a deep half guard, and it disrupts your base. So Spivak had one of two options. He's posting with his left arm and trying to use his forearm to create a little bit of space with the right arm. If he moves any of these hands in order to strike, he probably gets his balance, or his base is going to get offset. He's going to be off balance. And now you're allowing Alexei Olenek a scramble attempt, which he didn't want to do. So even though he was on top for the most part, he didn't really land anything damaging. It's a Spivak round on the basis of that he's on top. But again, it's a close round on the basis of nothing's really happened. And then 30 seconds left, he decides, you know what? Maybe 45 seconds left, he decides, you know what? I'll go for a submission. My corner's telling me there's not much time in this round. I'm winning the round from top position. Although I'm really doing anything, I might as well go for the submission. Ill-advised. You're not going to submit Alexei Olenek. All you're going to do is give up position, which is exactly what he does. So he gives up position. Olenek ends up on top. And just like Olenek in the first round, he would pass a Spivak's mount like nothing. Just right into mount. The problem with the first, and it was the same problem with this in the second, there's just not enough time, you know? Sure, you got a mount, but there's 20 seconds left. What are you going to do with it? Spivak's just going to grab, you know, a gable grip and he's just going to hold you in tight. He's going to try to create no space and let 30 seconds wear off the clock. Seems easy enough. So that's what Spivak does, but there's an argument there that Alexei Olenek won the round. I know the judges didn't agree. I know the Twitter fans. And listen, I got so much on Spivak here just to save my night that I do not want to believe that that world exists. But let's be real here. What happened in the second round? So slight striking advantage for Spivak, but nothing super notable. The fight hits the ground. Not a takedown for Spivak. It's a guard pull for Alexei Olenek. So Alexei Olenek's the one offensively pulling guard, so he can search for stuff. He's attempting half guard sweep. He's attempting to do something from the bottom. He's attempting to move. Spivak's not doing anything from top. He's just trying to hold him down. And then late in the round, you have Alexei Olenek ends up on top and mounts you again. So I had the top control and the slight striking advantage. I did score for Spivak. I'm just saying I don't know what the judges or scorecards are going into the third, and I would hate to be down 2-0 going to Alexei Olenek, who's given an incredibly good version of himself at this point, considering all his shortcomings. And in the third round, it's like the Spivak that we needed the entire fight decides to show up. His cardio clearly wasn't that bad. He wasn't all that fatigued. And he finally starts letting his hands go. In the first round, he would just use the jab. Just a jab, maybe a 1-2, but no combinations. He did land a couple decent left hooks, but again, it was just one and done striking. In the third round, he decides to tie some combinations together, and everything works. Another thing is that tie clinch was money for him. Every time he'd grab the tie clinch, the knee up the middle was right there, and he wouldn't throw it. You know, Josh Parisian did the same thing too. He grabbed Roque Martinez in the tie clinch. Roque would not try to punch his way out. He wouldn't even try to fight his way. He'd put both of his hands by his gut. Like he just didn't want to get hit in the stomach. And yet, Parisian never really let the knees go. Whenever Spivak did let those knees go to the body, they were taking a toll on Alexei Olenek. One, they were slowing him down. Two, they were taking the wind out of his sails. And it was not a very windy day for his sailboat to begin with. Taking out the little bit of energy and gas that he had was going to be crucial. So now you've got him busted. He's bleeding. Right, I think it was a right hook over the top. Cuts a nice little cut on the left side of Olenek's head. He's bleeding. He's tired. He's getting tagged up. And what does Spivak decide to do? Clinch with him. Just didn't understand it. But if he thought it was 1-1, then cool, man. He's dominating this round. This round's money in the bag. Whatever. Clinch with him, kill the rest of the clock off. I really did want that Spivak by TKO. Him at 3-1. It was a big price for a middling heavyweight. But him by TKO at like -120, it just seemed like, how did guys beat Alexei Olenek, right? They finish him. And in the third round, he was so tired, he was there for the finish. But then it dawns on you, well, the guys that have finished him were bona fide, and the guy he's currently fighting is Sergey Spivak. They looked awful. So, you know what? Again, Spivak is just a baby at this weight class. He's 27, correct? He's 26 years old, right? He's got good frame. He's got a skill set that's a work in progress. Again, he's put himself in a better training position to make improvements. And wins over Carlos Felipe, Jared Vander, Alexei Olenek are all very low level, but they're all the building blocks. The thing is that you're supposed to get better, you know? You're supposed to look a little bit better. This was a step back for him, you know? Striking didn't really look good until the third round when he was hitting a punching bag. Anybody can look good hitting a punching bag, let's be real. The first two rounds, it didn't look good. His wrestling did not look good. His ground and pound that looked really good in the Vandera fight in the third round versus Carlos Felipe was non-existent. And a bad judge could have gone 2 rounds for Alexei Olenek. I would hope that he would give a 10-8 to Spivak. If you were going to give the first 2 for Olenek, then clearly the third round was the most decisive. Might have been a 10-8 for Spivak, but all the same, like this wasn't a great performance. And I think with him, you move him up the ladder. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. Heavyweight's thin. He's still young. He's going to have to take on somebody decent at some point. And what he showed against Alexei Olenek, he's not quite ready for that. So they're going to have to build him along a little bit slower moving up. Don't put him up against Andrei Arlovsky. Don't put him up against Tom Aspinall. Don't put him up against Daukaus. Don't put him up against any of these, you know, good guys. I shouldn't say not good guys, but just don't throw him in too deep just yet. Let him build a little bit more. But this was not a promising fight for Sergey Spivak. Again, the end result is what we wanted. I'm not going to say I'm going to chalk it up as a half bad read. I thought he'd look better, but that's not my fault. It comes down to Alexei Olenek. We knew what version of him would show up, and to be honest, the version that usually shows up did show up. It's that Spivak failed to pull the gun, and unlike Laura Procopio, you can't just claim you're on your period, and none worked for you, Sergey. So, yeah, just listen. He's 26. He's at heavyweight. He's got a long ways to go. I just hope they don't rush him into it. And then we got the main event. My last bad read of the night, Dan Ige. My biggest takeaway here is that Dan Ige is not an elite level fighter. He is a good fighter. Maybe you can't say great fighter, solid fighter, certainly. And I'm a guy that really likes Dan Ige. And I'm a team Dan Ige guy. I think he's making those improvements, but his limitations were certainly shown. It's not just Korean Zombie exposed him. It's the Calvin Kattar fight, pretty much the same. 5-round situation, even though he's got 3-round cardio for days, and he's got heart for days, and he's got durability for days. He does seem to take a lot of damage in there, and it's just like that in itself wears him out. The reason why again, bad read in that I had Ige. This is what caught me off the most. In no world did I envision, no matter how this fight went, in no world did I envision that Korean Zombie's path to victory was takedowns over and over. I did not see coming. Dan Ige starts the first round. I scored the first round for Ige. I know a lot of people scored the first round for Korean Zombie. That's fair. Ige landed a couple good shots. He got his attention early. Korean Zombie started to pull away maybe a little bit later in that round, but I honestly did give the round to Dan Ige. Very close round. The second round, not a close round. Korean Zombie able to get going. He takes him down. The third round, he takes him down. If it's 2-1 going into the fourth, I need the fourth and fifth for Dan Ige. And Dan Ige starts off the fourth pretty solid, but it's the takedowns. And listen, he wrestled. I think he only really wrestled in high school, so he's not a guy that I can say has got great wrestling. But wrestling's never really been one of the huge kryptonites. He's out of Extreme Couture. He works with great wrestlers all the time. He showed up in fantastic shape. We knew his striking would be good. And honestly, when you think of Korean Zombie, you more or less think striking. Great takedown defense. And I didn't really think that Dan Ige would be able to take him down, but I thought wrestling nullifies itself. We're going to have a striking battle. TKZ's got the longer strikes. He's probably got a slight power advantage, but Ige's got the hand speed, and Ige's got decent power himself. And he's just going to find a way to work himself into this, tire out Korean Zombie, take him to some deeper waters, none of which existed. Zombie just was able to revert to his wrestling whenever he wanted. And even without the wrestling, he was doing fine striking. It's that there was such a big advantage there that he'd be a fool not to take it, and he did take it. And Ige was getting grounded. Once he was on his back, you can tell he's got good jiu-jitsu, but he just had really no answer. In the fifth round, he needs a stoppage as far as I'm concerned. He's down. I am being told I'm generous for giving him the first round, but he's lost 2, 3, and 4. He needs a stoppage at the very least, and that's what he attempts to do. He brings the pain. He lets his hands go. I will always respect Dan Ige as a warrior. Right? A guy that is extremely difficult to put away. Who's finishing him? He'll take the toughest fights. He'll take 5-round fights. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got a good attitude. He's a hardworking guy. They say no one outworks him, but personality and work ethic, it gets you far, but it doesn't quite get you over that hump, I guess. And Dan Ige proved for the second time in his second headlining event that it's just like he's not one of these guys that's going to get over that hump. So I love him, and I think that he's going to be able to beat a lot of guys. I don't think he's a factor in at the top 5, maybe not even the top 10 of the division. It'd be interesting to see what happens going forward. And again, he'll be able to give rounds to anybody. He'll be able to go there and fight. You want him to fight 5 rounds with Brian Ortega? He'll do it. You want him to go 5 rounds with Max Holloway? You want him to go 5 rounds with Alexander Volkanovski? I think he could, but he loses every single round of all of those fights. So that's the problem. It's not that he can hang in there. It's that he's losing. And for him to get out grappled by the Korean Zombie like that, definitely cause for concern. And now, not to take on anything away from the Korean Zombie, that was dope. You know what I mean? He's a fan favorite. Everybody loves him. At 34 years old, coming off that loss to Brian Ortega, hey, Brian Ortega looks superhuman. It was a Herculean effort from him. But maybe Zombie's getting a little bit tired. Maybe Zombie's not that interested. And a couple Korean media members before the fight said, if Zombie loses this fight, it's entirely possible that he just hangs him up and goes back home to Korea. He's got money. He's got a great reputation. He's got like a thing where I think he can teach like hand-to-hand combat instructions for the Korean military. It's like, yeah, this guy's going to be completely fine. He can travel the world a little bit, do everything he wants. If you lose to Dan Ige, it's going to set back, but he showed he still got it tonight. He beat a top-level guy. He looked good doing it. And again, this is another, well, I suppose I would say I would chalk it up to a bad view on my point, was that his 3 wins, the Frankie Edgar, Hanato Moicano, and Dennis Bermudez fight, they're all first-round knockouts. So if he hits you in the first round, he knocks you out, sure. If you're able to work your way back into it, I get the Yair fight, he was up. But if you fight him for a prolonged period of time, the damage will start to add up. He'll start to slow down. You'll find your ways. Dan Ige is so durable. I knew he wouldn't get knocked down the first round. I thought he'd pull over. He'd pull it out the longer it went. I scored the first round for Ige, and it was all downhill after that. Great performance from Korean Zombie, showing everybody that Duke can strike, Duke can wrestle too. And as far as his ground game goes, like submitting him, good luck. If he's on top of you, you got a problem. If you stand in front of him, you've got a problem. So solid win for the Zombie. Should not have overlooked him. I did learn my lesson on Dan Ige. And all in all, man, I got absolutely blown up this card. But we hit the top ticket parlay, which again, that's the one that we got our most investment in. It pretty much just, for the most part, paid for a lot of said losing tickets. But don't be sour. You can't be sour. You can't be one of these guys that want, oh man, I lost and blah, blah, blah. And, oh man, that sucked. I didn't have a good night. We're fight fans. That's why we do this, right? You don't just, it's fun if you win. And if it lost, I hate this guy. I don't like this sport. I'm not watching this anymore. I'm a fight fan. I love fights. I started watching fighting when I was 14, 15 years old. I was drawn to it. I love two people getting in there and testing wills. You have a belief of what you think should happen, what could happen. You run the scenario 100 times in your head. You think, geez, this guy's going to win 80% of the time. You bet him. But you don't know what happens until the cage door closes and both guys get in there. But when you're treated to entertaining MMA, the test of wills, the back and forth, you know, there's nothing more beautiful than that. And so what? I lost my best this week. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to lick my wounds and I'm going to get on next week's card and we're going to get it back. And again, it's a roller coaster, but you go up, you go down. And at the end, the marathon, not the sprint, you know, we're going to come out on the positive. I'm positive in that just because it's a grind. You have a bad night here and there. But I will admit, well, I guess we'll start with Ricky Glenn. He comes off a near 3-year-long layoff. He's a plumber with a bad hip and a family who has to move back home, and he wins. How could you not be psyched for that, right? Kanako Murata, the heart that this girl displays, she breaks her elbow. She dislocates her elbow. She's fighting with one arm, and never once does it cross her brain, what the fuck am I doing here, man? I should probably tell the ref, yo, what is going on? My corner should throw in the towel. Certainly, the doctor rings. Somebody needs to do so, but not her. She is not considerate. Seeing hard like that was pretty dope. This Nick Negamarianu, seeing a chin like that, man, this guy took some shots and just came forward the entire time. Matt Brown, the old junkyard dog, pulling one off with the KO. How could that not make you feel good? You know, you got the Bruno Silva and Sung Woo Choi fight, both spectacular knockouts. Marlon Vera versus Davey Grant was pretty tough. Chang Sung Jung versus Dan Ige was good. This was a fun card, man. This was an entertaining card. They had good finishes. First and foremost, like I said, as far as being a fight fan goes, I had a wicked night. As far as going a capper goes, But like I said, we're on to the next one. What can you do? I think we got a Bellator coming up as well. There's a UFC pay-per-view, and then there's a week-long gap. So, again, we'll do the best that we can. We'll jump back on it. If you got any thoughts, concerns, you think I was way off on something that I didn't mention, you want to call me a loser, whatever, I don't mind. Just leave it in the comment section or hit me up on Twitter. All good. And, yeah, unfortunately, that was the sad recap for UFC Vegas 29. Hopefully we can get a happy one next time around.